So last week, Barnes& Noble CEO James Daunt spoke about how they're willing to have AI books on their shelves. He did say that he expects publishers to put which books are AI generated on the book, which I guess pushes the onus back to the publishers. At this point, most of them have decided that they don't want AI books. And then Amazon Alexa announced custom AI generated podcasts for people on any topic created in real time per listener. And then Spotify and UMG announced that premium subscribers can create AI covers and remixes of UMG artist songs, including Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, and Billie Eilish, as a paid add-on. Artists get to opt in and get part of the revenue share for that. Basically, Spotify is saying if an artist consents and the user puts credit, then, the artist gets compensation. So who's it hurting? The main question here is like, is this going to create a new, generation of AI created content and like what the implications are for AR going forward? So any thoughts on that, Brienne? I know that you're kind of in the space of like startups, creators,
Yeah,
and, venture. So,
for sure. I mean, from a Barnes& and Noble perspective, at the end of the day, they compete with Amazon. And
right.
for years, Amazon has enabled a new type of writer, a new type of creator, a new type of self-publisher. I think back to even the early days, if you look at poets like Rupi Kaur and some of these
hmm
very much internet famous, pre-AI, Instagram native creatives,
hmm
many of them have been rejected throughout their entire career by traditional publishers. And so
Right.
Amazon has created this platform where if you have an idea, if you have some sort of intellectual IP, you can turn that into a PDF, you can turn that into an audiobook. And so I do think the traditional Barnes and Nobles of the world are going to have to catch up in some way, shape, or form. Do I think it's fair and should there be protective measures for existing IP? Like, should I be able to go out and completely copycat a Stephen King novel and just change the name of the characters or change the location of the novel? No. Like, I think that's completely unfair and people should own and control their own IP. But I think the traditional publishers have to start understanding that there is a future that's very AI native and empowered by AI. And, I have a lot of friends who are New York Times bestselling writers and screenwriters in Hollywood and folks that have had their books be adapted for the big screen. And I think for them, they're super interested in a world where AI is not necessarily writing the story, but AI is dynamically translating it into 70 some languages. So now they're fully internationalized from day one, or they're thinking about voice from a character development perspective where it is really impactful to, instead of just having an author narrate their own audiobook, can you introduce in a very cost effective and sort of time saving manner that in these new audiobooks you actually have characters, and so it feels more immersive. It improves the quality of the story.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing that that I'm thinking about is the market is going to win, like if people don't in fact want AI books, then they won't sell, then people won't buy them. The same thing with the music, right? If somebody's going to come in and like remix songs, ultimately wouldn't they just rather create their own music to get their
Yeah.
own IP? It's the wild wild west right now and people just want to experiment, but I think the line will like revert back to like realizing that like human created art is the best. I was thinking about this today because they just had the enhanced games yesterday with like athletes competing like drugged
Yeah.
up to the gills, right? And like most of them still lost to like the
Yeah.
human record holders, and it just made me realize like there's a parallel here for AI, AI being the enhancement and then like real artists creating without any enhancements and then still winning out. Like that discernment is going to grow and grow and grow the more that people become accustomed to actually seeing the output of AI. And
Yeah.
even the ones that are using it to actually do the work for them are going to find that they get bored with it, or that it just doesn't feel as if like they're actually succeeding. But there's like what you were saying, right, where it's like you're using it to like help whole consistency is there, or like the translations are there. I had a screenwriter, talk to us about her process of like what she uses AI for, and it's basically those things like the boring, things that are really hard for like humans to keep track of, but that computers are really good at. And I think that's going to be like the separation. But I think most of these companies are going about it the right way, where it's like, let's experiment, see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's make it obvious that this is AI,
Yep.
and then let the customer decide what they want.
Totally, and I'm smiling because I see a guitar in the background,
Yeah.
and I'm reminded of there was a school of thought when the electric guitar was created that that was actually cheating, and so what it actually did was it created this whole new genre. Then you get heavy metal, then you get all of these, like, new ways of playing an electric guitar where
Mhm.
it didn't necessarily change the fact that if you're a classic guitar player, if you're an incredible acoustic guitar player, that doesn't take away from your work. It
Mhm.
just introduces these new genres where now
Yeah.
you have all of these like hyper you have these specific film festivals, you have, specific pod playlists on Spotify. It just introduces new art forms. And so I don't think that AI native filmmaking is gonna take away from some of the classically trained, like, beautifully made films. I think if anything, we're gonna start to see that bifurcation where we have
Mhm.
talked about this before. It's
Mhm.
incredible to see practical effects. It's
Mhm.
incredible to see, I think, Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein is a great example. AI will never change the fact that, like, someone sitting in the chair for 12 hours and getting amazing, prosthetic work done, like, that is true to the art form,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
will appreciate that, and I think that will be the award-winning plays.
Yeah. I mean,
I
even
still
Project
think
Hail Mary, right? Like Project Hail Mary was super popular. It's hugely because of the practical effects, where they
yeah.
built out the world and the sets, so that you could tell what the human creativity thought about space, and I think there is some part that's removed when you just leave it to AI to put together an amalgamation of every other like artist's idea what space is, as
Oh,
opposed to
absolutely.
letting an artist decide like what that space is supposed to look like, because that's what he sees in his head.
Oh, 100%, and I think about this a lot, and this is something that over the last 6 months I've really focused on. So I hired someone on my team that's our head of our creator community, uh, grew up in Hollywood, knows when films are getting greenlit, knows which books are getting adapted to the big screen, knows every, TV show creator and film studio. And so a part of this is also saying we're obsessed with AI native filmmaking. We're going to AI on the lot. We're, evangelizing AI when we go to South by Southwest. We're doing all of these things because we believe that there is a future and a new type of creator where I
Hmm.
truly believe like the next Walt Disney could be a 14-year-old in their bedroom. Like there are just
Hmm.
amazing stories of young people that are coming up with very creative ideas and they're, producing films at the fraction of the cost. That's great. I also think there's a world where AI slop and a lot of these things that
Hmm.
we're seeing online that feel very cheap, it's because someone's never been to a film set. Like they've never
Hmm.
seen the attention to detail. They've never seen the fact that like Project Hail Mary exists because and the quality of the work is so good because you have so many people behind the scenes
Hmm.
building the set and overanalyzing every single micro decision. I've thought about this when I've been on sets where it's very much a period piece. Like if you think about
Hmm.
Westworld, if you think about Mad Men, if you think about all of these shows that are very iconic in nature,
Hmm.
the wallpapers from that era, the shoes were
Hmm.
meticulously designed, and if someone from wardrobe or someone from set design isn't able to find something from that period, like, they will spend weeks and months actually creating it themselves, and there's just a beautiful level of artistry that I've noticed a lot more actors are really talking about in a lot of their interviews. I recently saw Anne Hathaway was speaking about her new film where she plays a pop star, and she
Hmm.
spent so much time talking about the person that's responsible for hair and makeup, and the
Hmm.
reason for that is there's just such an artistry in the industry itself. So I don't think that's going to go away. I do think it might be limited to maybe the higher profile and big budget films. But I still see a world where if you're an AI native filmmaker, if you're someone that's obsessed with disrupting an industry, you need to go spend time on a set. You need to
Hmm.
see exactly how things are done because it's such a beautiful way of building and it's such a huge operation that each film very much feels like a startup.
Definitely. I mean, that's kind of the bigger, one of the bigger lessons I think for me in everything that's happening with AI is just you got to go back to the basics and learn the like foundations of the things that you're interested in. So go read like fiction books and like philosophy and like, theory and all science and all that in order to be able to discern the difference between like what's AI and what's not. And I think as you're learning all that, like you're learning the basics, you'll find out what aspects of it are easier done through AI.
Yeah.
Um, so that like, the repetitive, like, hard grind that you've already learned, you can then go and like, have that be made easier with AI. And I think, that's a huge part of what I think is missing when we think about young people learning AI or using AI in any way, is like, well, how do you teach them to use it in a way that is actually a tool and not just replacing the work that they would have done? Because that's the bigger fear that I think I have when I think about this, like for my kids, is like losing the ability to be creative and think of, and being resourceful because AI is giving you the solution that somebody else, kind of came up with. So that'd be like a lesson here is, if you're interested in movies and books and, all that and writing, like go learn
Yeah.
how to write and then figure out from there where AI can like help enhance. Same thing with music, right? Like where can AI help enhance and not just do like the work for you? Because I really do think like more and more people are going to discern the difference between both. And they're going to choose. I think there are certain, areas where people are not going to accept it. I think like really high profile books, people are just not going to accept AI being a part of it. Um, but maybe there's a new type of book or like, way to read that people will accept that. I just don't think that we've learned that yet. But the
Yeah.
whole point is to test.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen this. There's a whole subgenre of couples on Instagram and TikTok that I'm obsessed with. It's couples talking to each other as though they're talking to ChatGPT or
I
any of
haven't, no.
model companies. It's
Uh-huh.
interesting because there is this new form of language where we
Hmm.
are getting so accustomed to being praised for our work, when in fact we probably need critiqued. And so
Yeah.
I know for a fact there have been blog posts or ideas or, things that I'm sharing with Claude that are not good. It's my
Yeah.
first round. It's my first like very much like just train of thought,
Yeah.
and I need to be better at prompting and saying, I don't want validation. I don't want you to tell me it's good. I want to
Yeah.
get better as a writer. And so
Hmm.
what are the ways that I can improve this? Are there certain
Hmm.
styles that I want to mirror a little bit more?
Hmm.
Is there sort of type of writing that I'm aspiring towards? I think as people who are now using a lot of these various tools, it's our job to be self-critical. It's also great for us to put these ideas out on the internet to get
Hmm.
some of that feedback because we're not getting it from the tools in their current state.
Yeah, agree. I think that's another thing here is like the distribution, infrastructure, right? Where it's like, all these companies are seeing kind of the writing on the wall that people do want to experiment. And so they have to be gatekeepers in some way. So they are opening that up. Spotify is going consent and compensation. Barnes and
Yep.
Noble is going label and letting the market decide. And Amazon is just like, fuck it, we'll just let people decide if they want it. And for marketers, I think that's something that you should decide like, is this something you want to wait for, or do you want to wait for the consensus to happen later? If you're a company that's like at the cutting edge and is working with AI, then it is worth experimenting with how you can use AI in your marketing, to, put your content or whatever you're creating out there. But if you're a company that's not, meant to be using AI, or where your audience isn't going to validate you using AI, then maybe those are the times that you pause.
I think for marketers as well, it's super interesting because it depends on the path that you're aspiring towards. If you
Mhm.
want to wait 2 to 3 years to publish a traditional book, it means a lot to you to be with a traditional publisher. You want the airport distribution, you want some of these more traditional channels. That's great, but there are pros and cons to that model. You're waiting a
Mhm.
couple of years to get it live. There's many rounds of reviews. It's not as simple as hiring a really great graphic designer, hiring a great editor, and, I've seen self-published authors that can get 2 to 3 books out instead of waiting for that traditional cycle where they're only getting one. So
Mhm.
if you view your journey as a writer and as a publisher as being more iterative in nature and you want to build a collection of work, there are modern ways of doing it. And I do think AI will play an important role in you accelerating that path to publishing and to getting
Mhm.
more books live.
Yeah. Agree.